before we start this review, a joke. What did Kenshiro say to Toki when he said something funny? Damn it, quit you joking. We got shit to do. So, I saw the Fist of the North Star live-action movie for the first time a couple of days ago. As you know, if you're following me on Facebook, you know I've been on a major Fist of the North Star kick. Fist of the North Star being a Japanese animated show from the 80s. And there was a movie, a live-action movie based off of it, made in America in 1995, direct-to-video. And I saw it, like I said, I saw it for the first time on YouTube a couple days ago, and almost every comment was just talking shit about this movie, like it was the worst thing ever. Someone even said it was worse than Dragon Ball Evolution, which I will find where that person lives and beat the shit out of him. Because let's face it, there's really nothing worse than Dragon Ball Evolution when it comes to really shitty adaptations. Even the Super Mario Brothers movie is far better than that. But you know what? I'm not going to harp on that movie. We're talking about Fist of the North Star, the live-action movie, and I saw it for the first time, the entire movie, and I'm going to be honest, it's not as bad as everybody makes it out to be. In fact, when it comes to adaptations, I say it's pretty damn good. Like, when I see the comments on this video, on this movie, of people saying, oh my god, it's the worst kung fu movie ever, and you know, it looks nothing like the show, and I'm just wondering if they even saw the original source material, because, like, you know how when people were, I hate to keep bringing this up, but you know how when people were defending Dragon Ball Evolution and saying, oh, if you pretend it's not Dragon Ball, it's a good movie, or if you pretend it's a standalone movie, and then it's a good movie, and they were, of course, horribly wrong with that. I can say that about Fist of the North Star, even if you've never seen the cartoon or read the comic or whatever. It's still a decent kung fu movie, and it's, you know, it's the 90s. I can forgive it being cheesy. I can forgive it being over the top and crazy. And you have to remember, this was the early 90s. This is when anime first started getting really fucking huge in America. This is the era of Toonami. You know, the late 90s, the mid to late 90s is when Dragon Ball Z was introduced to us. And I can guarantee you ask anybody about my age, I'm 25, what got them into anime? And I guarantee you a bunch of them are going to say Dragon Ball Z, because of the era that we lived in when anime was first starting to get huge in the United States. I mean, yeah, there were a couple of localized versions of anime here and there in the 80s, but nothing as huge or popular than they were in the 90s. And this was the era that this movie came out, with Fist of the North Star. Now, I'm not going to get too much into detail. Like, I'm not going to get all nostalgia critic on your ass and show the film in bits and pieces. I'm just going to touch on the main points, and that is, how is it compared to the original source material? Like, what's different, what remains the same, and what have you. The basic story still remains the same. It's still set in a post-apocalyptic world, although everything looks more modernized. You see, that's the weird thing about Fist of the North Star. It takes place in a post-apocalyptic future, like Mad Max, but everyone looks like they're from the Middle Ages. Like, you have people dressing up in tattered clothing, and, well, okay, maybe that's a side effect of being in a nuclear fucking war, but but you look at games like Fallout, right, and they're all dressed up in, you know, like tech armor and all this crazy shit, and you see the people dressed up in Fist of the North Star, the cartoon and the manga, and, you know, they're in peasant clothing, like shit from the Middle Ages. So in this movie, they modernized it a little bit to make, I guess, to suit it for a more Western audience. You know, everybody dresses up like, you know, they did in the 90s, and everyone's wearing like punk rock shit, But yeah, they basically gave that post-apocalyptic era a makeover, if you will. What has changed majorly, storyline-wise, is well, first of all, you got to remember that this is just an adaptation of the first arc of Fist of the North Star with Shin. So Rao hasn't come into the story yet. Jagi hasn't come into the story yet. Any of those guys. It's just Kenshiro beating the shit out of people and making them explode to make his way towards Shin to get his girlfriend back. So it's a very simplified version of that entire arc. So what major plot points have been changed? Well, first of all, Shin is the one who kills Kenshiro's master and adoptive father, Ryukin, not Rao. He basically just walks right up to... Oh, by the way, spoilers if you haven't seen this movie yet. He walks right up to Ryukin and says, "This is execution, bitch." Bam! Shoots him right in the fucking head, which is completely not what Shin would have done. As much of an asshole as Shin is, he never relies on weapons. That's more of a Jagi thing. Speaking of Jagi, he's actually in this movie, but he's renamed as Jackal for whatever reason. And they actually did include a live-action version of how Kenshiro got his scars, which I thought was pretty cool. Like, you know, they got that right. They got that pretty much right. I mean, Kenshiro beats the shit out of Jagi, which actually happened far before the events of Shin. But, you know, he beats the shit out of Jagi. Jagi's like, "Oh god, my head! Ah!" And then he fights Shin and gets his ass kicked. And one part I thought was really funny is that the final blow that weakened Kenshiro to the point of him not being able to fight anymore is Shin spreading Kenshiro's legs and curb stomping him right in the nutsack, and that was the final straw. That was what, you know, got Kenshiro to basically lose the fight. And I guess it doesn't matter how big or tough you are. You get kicked in the pills, you're going down. And they actually do show Shin use his fingers to pierce the Big Dipper into Kenshiro's chest, complete with fake Kool-Aid blood spurting all over the fucking place, and it's just glorious. And it's actually really pretty cool looking. I mean, Kenshiro's facial expressions when he's getting his done him or prices, he's like... but yeah, they included that in the movie, which was really cool. So that in itself is faithful to the source. You have, let's see, what other characters are there? You have Bat and Lin. Bat is played, oddly enough, by Dante Bosco, who is famous for Zuko in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and of course Rufio Bangarang from the movie Hook with Robin Williams. And I'm just gonna throw this out there. In this movie, he also gets stabbed and dies. I don't know what it is with Dante Bosco and having characters getting stabbed and dying, but you know, that they throw that in there, and he pretty much is a live-action Bat. I mean, he's a smart ass. He thinks he's tough shit, and he's cunning. So yeah, that, you know, Bat is pretty much spot on. Lin, they changed her backstory for her from her being a mute when she saw her parents die to being blind. As in, she was so traumatized by seeing her parents die that she just straight up went blind. And she's played by a little kid, so you can't really judge that too harshly. Well, then again, Lin was an annoying little shit in the anime anyway, so... yeah, kid! Let's see, who else we got there? Obviously, they have Shin. Shin has beautiful long hair. It's brown instead of blonde, but what the fuck ever. And he's a cocky bastard, so they got that pretty much down. Kenshiro is oddly enough played by a white guy named Gary Daniels. Let's be honest, if you were going to have a live-action Fist of the North Star and you wanted someone who actually looked like Kenshiro, you pick Bruce Lee. Another detail that they changed for this movie is that Shin's martial art is no longer called Nanto Seiken. It's Southern Cross, which, I don't know, I guess makes sense. I mean, he was the leader of the Southern Cross, but that wasn't the name of his martial art style. Much in the same way that Kenshiro's not in this movie. It's not called Hokuto Shinken. It's what it's literally called, the Fist of the North Star. Actually, no, it's the Divine Fist of the North Star, but they call it the Fist of the North Star, the North Star fighting style of kung fu. But I can look over that. It's a tiny nitpicky detail. But anyway, what's the plot? It's your basic shit. Kenshiro gets his woman taken from him, so he beats the crap out of people to get her back. And you know what? I do admire that they try to bring the craziness from the anime to the big screen, because there's a scene where Kenshiro's at this shack, right? And Zed and his gang come in. Yes, Zed is in this movie. The big guy from the first few episodes that tried to kill Lin. There's a scene where Kenshiro tries to escape the shack, but he can't. So, because they lock the doors, right? At least I think they locked the doors. But anyway, Kenshiro kicks through the door, hits one of the dudes in the jaw, and his jaw is like right over here, and then he dies. And then he does a palm strike to the back of this one dude, and his rib cage is like extended out to here, and then he dies. And then when he gets to Zed, he actually does the 100 crack fist. He's like, and but he doesn't do the ta, and it just bugs me because he's Kenshiro. That's what he's known for. He's known for screaming like a fucking banshee and going but he doesn't do that in the movie. Instead, he goes like just exasperated groans as he's doing it. And it looks silly when it's done to the big screen, but I understand, where they are coming from. And Zed, and this dialogue actually kind of ripped from the manga and the cartoon. Zed's like, "You trying to tickle me to death?" And then Kenshiro looks into the camera, like it's fucking CSI Miami, and he goes, "You are already dead." And then he walks off, and Zed's like, "Ah, my head!" But you don't see it explode, which is lame. But yeah, they actually have Kenshiro say, "You are already dead," which is his catchphrase in this movie. But it just seemed like a corny CSI Miami type deal, you know what I mean? So yeah, the Crossmen, which are Shin's personal army, they come, raid the town. Here comes Kenshiro, he's gonna save the day. Lin gets kidnapped. Kenshiro and Bat team up to save Lin. Bat gets stabbed by Jagi and left for dead. And Kenshiro, he faces this guy, right? His name's Goliath, and he's basically a poor man's version of Mr. Hart, and he's played by WWE superstar Vader, which is amazing. Because let's face it, if you're gonna get some big hulking motherfucker to be in your movie, but he can actually fight, you couldn't pick anyone better than Vader. I mean, the guy can do a fucking moonsault. He's like 600 pounds. And he was in a shoot fight in Japan with Stan Hansen. Stan Hansen hit him the wrong way, fucking eyeball popped out. Or his eye popped out of his socket, and he had to fight the rest of the way. So yeah, Vader's pretty much a big badass. So yeah, one thing I can actually appreciate about this movie is that they didn't make Kenshiro this invincible, untouchable Gary Stu. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's actually getting his ass kicked by Vader. And then he has to muster up the strength to fight back. And he puts Vader in a headlock, and Vader's like, "Who are you?" As he's getting his ass kicked, and Kenshiro's like, in the most badass way possible, "The Fist of the North Star." And then he snaps Vader's neck, and the town is saved. But then Jagi, he's in the warehouse, he's got a sniper rifle, right? And he goes to shoot Kenshiro. But then here comes Bat. He knocks Jagi unconscious and knocks the gun out of the way, and he saves Kenshiro, but then he dies. Of course, because, we gotta have someone die for the hero. So then Ken makes his way to Shin's castle, right? And, every single bad guy in the history of ever is waiting for him. And then you get this pretty cool-looking kung fu scene where just Kenshiro's just beating the shit out of everybody. No one explodes, though, which is actually kind of sad, because, it's his Fist of the North Star. He fucking pokes a dude in the cheek and his head explodes. Meanwhile, Kenshiro's bride-to-be, Yuria, or Julia, depending on whether you watch the dub or the sub, she's getting. I'm not even going to sugarcoat this. She's about to be raped by Joggy. That's basically what's happening at this scene. Joggy's got her pinned down. He's beating the shit out of her. And then she manages to reach for the strap that's holding his head together so it doesn't explode, removes it, and his head explodes. And it actually looks pretty cool. Like, his head's pulsating. He's like, oh my god. And then you see the fake Kool-Aid blood spray all over the place, and it's like, and that's about as close as you're going to get to a scene from the manga or the anime in terms of head exploding. So anyway, Kenshiro is at Shin's place, right? And he finds Shin, and then they fight, and then Shin uses his magic Southern Cross technique, which by the way, his martial arts nowhere near as cool as it looks in the anime. Like, Shin Nantoseiken, he's doing the whole, shit like this and piercing, and he makes people fall apart just by waving his hand. None of that. Instead, he pushes Kenshiro with aura that's surrounding his hand. He pushes him in the chest, and then Kenshiro convulses, and then his wrist split open, and then blood gushes out, and then his scars split open, and blood gushes out, and then he's supposed to be dead, right? That's Shin's finishing move. And then Kenshiro, being the main character, says, fuck that shit, and he gets right back up, beats the crap out of Shin, and kills him with a punch to the brain. And as he makes his way down, as Kenshiro makes his way back down to the level, there's all these bad guys with axes, right? And then Kenshiro's about to kick some ass, he gets in his fighting stance, and then all of a sudden, they stop, look, and then bow. And Kenshiro's like, what the fuck's going on? Turns out, here's Julia walking down the stairs, and then they embrace, and the movie zooms out, and it ends. Overall, it's not a bad adaptation. I mean, they took some liberties here and there, which, okay, it's an adaptation, you kind of have to do that, but they weren't that bad. They weren't that bad of a change. I mean, I'm being flat out honest here. I mean, this may ruin my credibility as a reviewer, I guess, but I actually liked this movie. It's a decently adapted version of Fist of the North Star, and what's even better, there's a Japanese version. There's a Japanese dub of this movie where the original cast from the cartoon reprises their roles for the respective characters. So you have Akira Kamiya doing Kenshiro again, and yes, he adds the what, and of course saying "Omae wa mou shinde." And I mean, I've never seen it. I've never seen the Japanese dub of this movie. I want to, just out of sheer curiosity. But yeah, I mean, if you're a kung fu film buff and you like anime, you might like this movie. I mean, I honestly don't understand where all the hate's coming from. I mean, it's a decently made movie, especially from the 90s, which is the era for which the 80s and 90s was the king of cheesy movies in that era. So yeah, I'd give this film a thumbs up. And once again, folks, my name's BigAl, and when it comes to movies, books, and the like, I am the judge, the jury, and the executioner. Over and out.